Let's have 3185.
A special non-sequence. I wish folks on my side dish would stop using arguments that go, a superintelligence would be to humans like we are to insects. I think the relations are see. Humans and humans. Insects are just not very similar. I am surprised if people who aren't already convinced find this argument convincing. Problem 1. Some humans care about insects. Even I care about insects. I think it's sad when any living thing has to die. I kill flies for my own convenience, but I'm not happy when I do. I don't think that flies I kill are conscious and unhappy. To be clear, it's just unpleasant, unesthetic. My old email headers, if you dug back up emails I was sending at age 13, had the organization line, which was a thing back then, set to Mitochondrial Liberation Front. So reason one, I don't like the insect analogy is that some humans care about insects, or even mitochondria. The whole entire worry is that we do not presently have the competence and alignment to make machine superintelligence care at all, not even a little tiny little bit. If somebody thinks that's improbable, then you may need to sit down and have a long conversation about the /thought gap and how historically costly humans ended up caring about things. Using the analogy of superintelligence as being to humans as humans are to ants will lead some good and honest people to reply, well, but humans don't have to care about each other or bugs or trees or whales, so why wouldn't AI have exactly as strong and compelling a drive to use every bit of matter and energy around on its Go reconstruction project without regard to humans' concerns or happiness? It might be a better point than your actual argument, and you've just handed it to them on a silver platter. There isn't any moral question about caring about anything at all. You could say, you just have to feel love to somebody that says love is an illusion, or the same thing, more directly. Love isn't even real. What do you mean by having? To get them to concede love is a valid illusion. That's different. If your audience accepts any concept of moralism, then your analogy is a distraction, and it's probably just as good strategy to avoid pointing out to everyone what weak position they are actually taking, since that might encourage people in other fields not really ready for philosophy that don't have my special tolerance of such conversations to also engage. Also, it tends to come with a strong emotional undertone of people trying to say things instead of having things said that sound bad and mean that people want to not accept them because it sounds bad. The other problems are more directly aimed toward those less scaring persons who don't care that much even about most people's interests, including those few that aren't human. Secondary problem, too. How much more similar to you must something be to get an obligation to prefer not hurting it to 100 other outcomes that have fewer lives or moments of unhappiness, all otherwise equal? Or that you expect will be equally probable across your future light cones? A human being should count by now, you know. There isn't really some special moment when that relation becomes stable, except by a purely conventional moment defined in terms of some more intuitive scale. If I know anything about human psychology, though, as a mere layman's observer, not a proper expert, Then we're going to keep changing what we mean by the same intuitive value of a moment on some scale, like what is or isn't worth risking some danger for depending on it. There happens to be some specific conscious mind in your vicinity that we could talk to while making the comparison at the critical instant, but it has nothing to do with the mathematical properties of consciousness, as opposed to sentience or perception. We have some notion like one ought to count for at least about the same amount over this length of time scale when we think about human brains, because it's a brain you would see being heard, whereas I think counts more like one and counts about this much less, but that still applies. We would have the idea already before seeing how different one unto a brain really is, because it's an obvious difference. Even people who have read the original and remember reading it might take a moment for this concept of the ant/mind's relation to make sense. This analogy of a relation that is similar looking to that between humans and their own individual human minds is not quite a perfect similarity in a physical way. We do know from some people in their stories or their blogs where it looks almost all different, even though some details about the physical world were identical. But when people ask if something like you isn't exactly your situation as far as goals being set, then how many people have you just as self? So you ought not ever trade them off to make all the people in other cells just like theirs. Then, even when they look at those who are in different circumstances and have lost or had things taken away, and even if you don't get angry at someone for saying, "What are you even worried about here?" Do I really need the right not to be thrown in the fire unless some other self prefers not to be? It is only a few times that when I go for the answer where I think they mean the question, it says, the whole rest of these human minds all around us. It sounds kind of stupid to me for somebody with my own goals. When I say to myself, okay, then let me start to look at other places. It's very much a human thing, I suppose, when some people seem just about this similar on any intuitive basis that I have been taught, though it's possible, given human psychology as you know it, even from reading other people's theories or explanations, that somebody might not accept your judgment, that they'll disagree about what seems intuitively about the same as what. Then you'd want to know their explanation as best you could guess what would be the most important parts to include. If someone thinks that I have this problem with being willing to care less than a brain, where they expect someone else with the same problem should be exactly 1, and yet I say maybe about 0, -5 to 7 or 10 or 20 ants if someone then replies, "It's a brain though," as an argument, or thinks it was enough said by itself rather than telling you where the confusion came on any other part, or would they then argue with your math or reasoning? Well, that seems rather unsolvable from here. So one person would need to look into more psychology, and then maybe have conversations of an informal variety, because there isn't an oracle saying you can look up human morality or what people feel, so you're not looking for something as definite to say it's true. It will seem much more plausible that we've both been told false stories in childhood for people's moral sense sometimes to end up being too far away in distance. This was my personal thought on why this issue keeps coming up, and I've heard others tell the same sort of anecdotes from talking over it. The more people are trying to do something, especially when their culture of raising children includes a big idea like morals that need people learning the details, there can still be lots of room to vary from the norm, but at a lower rate that gets noticed more often or reported. That I do not see myself as different from those persons is perhaps just an emotional effect. I feel a bit uncomfortable about my having a moral sense so close instead of further than them, yet still different, which makes you think about your whole way of living. You wanted to be like someone who could do a lot without a sense of feeling bad or wrong or dirty, who did just find themselves able to do this, and not be a wicked creature of hell, for reasons unknown.
Hmm. Okay, we're done.